Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Ambitious. I am friggin' stoked for today's episode. I have the absolute pleasure of interviewing a business powerhouse. I actually met her in person at an event a couple months back, and we were both speaking at a conference together. And hearing her speak, talking to her, learning more about her business, learning more about her personal story. I just got to say, guys, I'm so inspired. I just was so moved by what she talked about, her experience, and all the knowledge that she has, not only in one business, but in so many different areas of business. And so today, I am so excited to be interviewing Ashli Pollard about her experience in business and running multiple seven figures worth of business in multiple different industries. Like, this bio alone is powerful. And so I think as I go into this, I also want to say, I think in the online space, there's a lot of like people putting entrepreneur in their Instagram bio of like, I'm an entrepreneur after maybe a couple seconds in the space. And listen, I'm all for everybody wanting to be an entrepreneur. I love entrepreneurship, but I can tell you that this powerhouse that we are interviewing today is a true purebred entrepreneur. She lives, she breathes it. And so Ashli Pollard is an incredible CEO. She's an expert marketer. She is a speaker. She's a mentor. She has a consulting business. She has done for you business. She has a podcast production company that she manages. There's really nothing that this woman cannot do. And with this, she has just worked with so many different types of clients. She's worked with smaller businesses that are just making their first couple sales, all the way up to celebrities, to the likings of Brooke Shields and Bethany Frankel. Okay. So she has founded so many different businesses. So she's the founder of Me Time. So Me Time is actually a business that is a product-based business, and it is the world's first morning routine kit that basically allows its consumers to have a moment for themselves and also help to reduce anxiety in the morning. She is also the founder of AP Consulting, which really helps with full digital marketing from package design, branding, social media, email marketing, copy, really, again, nothing under this umbrella that she can't do. And she's also the founder of Fast Forward Productions, which is a female-focused podcast production company. And of course, she also has her own, not one podcast, two podcasts. She is the host of The Daily Hype as well as the host of The Unfiltered Entrepreneur. Today is going to be a juicy episode. There is so much that I have learned from this incredible human, and I definitely would recommend you to take out a piece of paper and pen and get ready to take some notes because she is a true veteran entrepreneur. So let's get into today's episode. All right, Ashli, welcome to Ambitious. So psyched to have you here and to dive in. I was just saying in your intro, like how wowed I am by all of the things that you've done and like the fact that you have founded so many things in such a short amount of time. And is she energized? Is she tired? I guess as a start point, give me a little bit of an insight on that side as to obviously you started in entrepreneurship and you've been going at like warp speed. So any, I guess, insight just even in that for our listeners?
Yeah, so I have my multiple businesses, and just a few months ago, I launched Cocky Ventures, which is now my umbrella company that houses all of my brands in one space, which is really exciting. A lot of people are like, what do you do? And now I have a place where I can say, oh, I run Cocky Ventures, which is our place where women are empowered to act like men and take up ownership and take up space. But to your point, I have kind of worked at warp speed, and I have a very strong ideology about movement and momentum. And for me, I have the benefit and the privilege of a full 11-year career in the fashion industry in New York. So for me, I am definitely moving very quickly these past 3 years, but I have a full house built of skill set and resources and experience behind me to move that quickly. And so I always try to caveat that because there are people who listen to me who are 22, 23, I'm nearing 36, and I want them to know that like me moving quickly in 3 years is because of this grind and this focus and this learning that I did in my career. So I do just want to caveat that. And the way that I kind of view my entrepreneurship journey is this analogy I use often of this boulder rolling up the hill if I have a moment. So like, in essence, the way that I view business is that you have this massive boulder. It's like bigger than you are, and you have to push it up to the top of the hill. And when you get it to the top of the hill, the view is amazing. It's great. And that boulder can roll down the other side of the hill without you. To me, that's the goal in business. Whether that means you sell, whether that means a team takes over, whether that means you have a passive income stream that doesn't require you. The goal to me, with me and with all my clients, is get that boulder to the top of the hill, and then it can roll and collect along the way. And for me, I would rather push that boulder 4 hours a day at the amount of strength that I have and take breaks here and there to regain my strength than to move it 10 minutes a day. So for me, I have committed, honestly, to myself, to my family, to my friends. I mean, you can ask them. I've specifically said, you're not going to see me for a few years like that often, because my goal is one of these businesses is going to sell for a few $1,000,000. Two of these businesses are going to make me money behind the scenes without me even working in them. And then one of them is going to be something that lights me up and feels fun. That's not a short-term win. So I was very strategic and specific that I wanted to swap my short-term gains for my long-term gains. And I think it takes a real understanding of business to be able to do that.
Well, I actually think something that comes up for me as you're saying that is also the curiosity as well of like vision. Because as I'm hearing that, I'm like, this girl has a vision. Like you had a vision since day one. So I would be curious as to like when you started, like day one, Ashley, was she like, okay, like we're going to have one to sell, was that like your vision when you first started? Or would you almost say that it kind of like the vision almost developed as you developed the business? Because I feel like I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs who are, I'm planning for next week, I'm planning for next month. And they're not thinking about next year, 5 years, 10 years, like what is that ultimate goal? And so I think what happens is they're pushing that boulder, but they're like, we don't even know where this is going. We don't really have an end destination. So it's very defeating or overwhelming, or like burnout happens because you're like, I can't really see, like when you said the season, like I have said that exact same thing to people in my life. I'm like, listen, until I have kids, this is a season I'm in. You just kind of have to accept it's not going to last forever, but it is a phase of my life for sure, of like really being in entrepreneurship and in the businesses. But I would be curious, was that something that was so clear to you from day one? Or was that kind of almost developing as you saw what you were capable of and you were like in it, that you were like, okay, yes, this is what I want to do now. And it kind of developed as you were in it versus prior to starting?
Great question. And I'm really glad you're asking that because it is a hybrid. The way that I kind of describe it to people is that I was in the forest and I knew I wanted to get out on this side, but the trail is what I didn't really know. So for me, I have 4 businesses: Team AP Consulting, which is now my membership for entrepreneurs; Dial Zero Marketing, which is a marketing agency for major brands; Me Time, which is my passion project, that is my morning routine kit product-based business; and Fast Forward Production. Fast Forward Production, I don't run. A team runs that. I check in with them twice a week. I take a % off the top. Team AP Consulting, I have a team that basically runs it, but I am very involved there. Dial Zero Marketing, the team runs it and I'm there as CEO and I'm stepping into conversations, but I'm 40% involved there. So it's important, one, to know that one is always my full-time job, one is always my side hustle, and then I try to collect on the others if I can. So the goal in 2017, when I decided I wanted to head into this venture, is I wanted to be full-time in Me Time. Me Time is what I was put on this earth to do. It is my passion. It is what I'm excited about. It is where I see all of my ideas. It's everything I want to do. It's a culmination of my 11 years experience. But there were some stipulations that had to be in place to do things my way. And to do things my way, I needed to be able to have fun and I needed to be able to spend. And I don't come from wealth. I don't have a ton of money personally, especially when I was starting. I was in debt. So for me, I have to build some sort of revenue generating machine to fund Me Time, because I won't enjoy this life work and I won't be able to really be creative if my bills aren't paid. So I needed to make sure that I built some sort of machine for that. I always tell people the easiest in is sell your skill set. And I came from 11 years of business development for Prada, Rebecca Meekoff, Kendall and Kylie, Sam Edelman, Gucci. And so for me, I was like, that's the easiest in. I knew I had a business plan that was proprietary to me. I had growth and development strategies that I'd seen work with multi-million-dollar budgets. They're going to work for small budgets. And I know the way to kind of tweak that. So for me, that was the easiest in with Team AP Consulting. Now, I kind of hated it, I'll be honest. And I can say that now because I'm out of the services, but like, I'm so glad I'm not doing the VIP days anymore and the consulting calls. And, you know, I'm still doing that kind of within the membership, but it was not my joy. That was not my happy place. And I did 40 hours of calls for 2 years to build a reputation and a loyalty and an audience so that my membership can now take over. And the membership is like truly the best thing that ever happened to me. And I didn't even ever expect that to happen. So now Team AP Consulting has this revenue coming in, right? But I don't have big revenue. I need clients that are like $10, $20, $40, $50,000 per month. How am I going to do that? I'm going to have to sell to these entrepreneurs. That felt really gross to me. So I leaned into my network and I was signing celebrities, brands at Sephora, Bethany Frankel, Brooke Shields. There's like major names into the marketing agency because I needed capital. I needed capital and I needed a full-time team. And so now we have this like big revenue generating machine where the team is supporting these clients, but only for a week and a half of the month. And the rest of the month we can focus on me time. This, at the time of filming this, we're not full-time in me time, but when this comes out, me time has a brand new entity, brand new product. We're in stores. It's really exciting because now it gets to be my full-time job. I had a vision, which was me time.
The fact that you said I basically used my skill set to generate revenue so that I could do what I ultimately want to do. And I think there's a huge narrative right now online of do what you love, do what you love. And if you had gone right to me time versus, as you said, like putting in basically the reps, build the brand, build that like, no trust, build the connections, the network, leverage that to then do the ultimate thing. I think it's so honest of you to actually admit that, because I think so many people will just say, yeah, just let me here. But the reality is it actually is extremely strategic what you're talking about. This was not a fluke. This was actually something that you consciously thought about. Okay, I have a skill set, bring this to the business space, create the brand, create the reputation, use that reputation for the next stage. But I think that there's a huge narrative of just lean into what you love, and what you love will make you money. And so I'd be curious, I guess, in your opinion, if you were to think about it the other way, of you just go right into the business, just doing what you love. And as you said, your passion, your purpose is me time. What would you say to the person who's thinking about potentially just, okay, like I'm just leaning into my passions and I'm just going to go that way, versus almost indirectly, which is what you're saying, is kind of like where the money was to use the money to build the ultimate dream?
I mean, what I think of when people bring that to me, it's something I hear all the time, but I love this. I want to do it so badly. I'm stealing from my future joy. And what we have to remember is that if I want all my happiness today, like what's saved when I'm 40? What's saved when I'm 45? Like, yeah. I want to be happy forever. So how can sure, I wasn't doing what I was like super crazy passionate about on day one, but I found joy in it. I did it in a way that felt good. It was a job, right? It was going into a job that paid the bills, that I knew how to make money with. How can you find joy there? And for me, it was doing things that didn't feel good or that felt good, and then staying away from things that didn't make me feel good. It was working with clients that I liked working with. It was doing things in a way that felt ethical to me and responsible. So for me, like, I think it was, I want to be happy all the time and I want to do what uplifts me. But if I ran into me time, I wouldn't have the money. I'd be embarrassed what we were putting out there. It would be so hard. It would be so hard because I don't have all the skill sets needed for me time, especially years ago. But now I don't need those skill sets because I'm able to hire those people. I don't need to get good at manufacturing. I hired someone. I don't need to get good at all of these different functions because I hired people. And so for me, I knew that was going to be, I mean, my idea for me time came around in 2014. I went out for funding in 2014 for me time and got some money and interest, but I knew I wasn't there. And to me, I can always tell when the path is not illuminated. It's something that I say to people all the time. If the path is not illuminated, I'm not walking it. And so when I started doing everything with me time or Team AP Consulting, and I was making this money, I was like, holy shit, this is way different than I expected. That's when I said, okay, I think I'm on to something. I'm going to make big money here. But then when I realized big money meant really big contracts, I shifted into a place that it felt more ethical to have those big budgets. And now the path is fully illuminated and we can play. And that is so much fun to me. Like, me time doesn't have to make one single dollar because it's fully funded from my other businesses, which means we don't have to really do anything. Like, we don't have any sales goals because we can just play and create a community. And that is the right way to build a business. Do you know what I mean?
Which also, I think, in turn, removes the pressure. Like, I think when you're going in and it's, I got to make a sale this week, I got to make a sale this month, or as you said, like, you have a sales target for the team. You're like, if we don't hit this target, so-and-so's job is not going to be something that we need any longer. That pressure puts so much pressure in the way that you operate and make decisions. And I think as a result, it trickles down into just an awful experience, number one, for the company, and two, for the culture of everyone else in it. And it's honestly one of the reasons, I will say, you guys, I geeked out on researching it's like I nerded out for the last week on all things Ashli, because seeing your history and everything that you've done, I already know you're going to bring gold, but I have so many questions about your business strategy, because obviously you've been in so many different industries. You've also worked with so many different levels of business owners, like people who are kind of in the earlier stages, probably all the way up to celebrities who have these massive brands. And you also talk about team, you talk about marketing. So I'm like, if there's anyone to interview when it comes to these skill sets, it is her. And so I would love to just pick your brain, but a couple different areas that I feel like in being in all these businesses, you have so much experience in. And one of the things that I was so curious about, because you've got your personal brand, you also have business brands though. And I think a lot of times I have conversations with people like in my following clients, etc., who will say, is it better for me to be a personal brand? Do you think that I can be more leveraged as a personal brand? I want to be a company brand because I don't want to show my face. And trying to really decide if they are going to build an agency, is this something that I need to have my face as the forefront? And so I would be so curious in your experience, because you have some that like you're very forefront on and some that you're not, as my face is basically everywhere. And so I'd be curious for you, and even potentially with the brands that you've worked with, what is your thoughts when someone's kind of struggling with that type of the tug of war, I guess, of like personal brand versus the business brand?
Well, I have strong thoughts here. I have strong feelings here. One thing is that, so me time strategically doesn't have my face or name anywhere. And I'm not secretive about it. I'm talking about it, right? So I'm not like, don't tell the men, but I know where I'm playing. And when I'm going out for money, I want it to be genderless. And I want them to wonder who's running this business. And I want them to maybe be surprised that it's a woman, because I know all of this stuff, right? And that's not to say that women aren't smart. We're definitely way more advanced than we ever have been. But like when you get in these rooms, like I've been in these rooms, it's not any different than you'd think it would be in the 50s. And so for me, I needed me time to be, I'm selling me time, and I'm very open about that. Me time is not a business I want to run. It's a business I'm building to sell. I do not want to run this business for life. I want to sell it. So for me to sell it, I need to blend in. I need to be one of the guys. I need to know how to run this business. So it's genderless for a reason. The second thing with Dial Zero marketing, I refuse to do client work. I am not the one you want to be writing your copy. I am not the one you want to be doing your graphic design. I'm not about to be, no offense, I'm not above anything, but I'm not about to be like posting someone's Instagram posts for them. So the reason I don't have my face on the Dial Zero website is because you aren't working with me. Don't ever think you are. I am working with the team behind the scenes. You have a project manager, you have someone onboarding you, you have someone doing all the work, someone assisting that team. We don't talk. And if we do talk, it's because there's something high level that you need me for. So that's also strategic. I don't need to be here. The team's got it. I check in with them once a week. They're handling it. They do all the client interfacing. With Team AP Consulting, what's interesting, and this is something I was always teetering on, do I talk about this or not? But I'm starting to, is that there is a lot of Ashli in the Team AP brand, right? And it does feel kind of personal brand where people get to know me and they get to know my beliefs, especially with the podcast and the Unfiltered Entrepreneur podcast and with what I share here and there on social media. But, and I hate to say this because it really I really worry that people may lose trust in me, but that's not me. That is a brand. That is me being the Team AP Consulting person. And I think a lot of people get to know me at Team AP Consulting, but there's so much that I don't share. I share very little. And what I always tell people is like sharing on Instagram is such a safe facade because I can share everything about my life and no one really knows anything. So for me, what I want to talk about with personal brand is that I don't think I personally am ready for that. And the reason for that is because I have a job to do. I have to run these businesses. I have a responsibility to my team. I soon have a responsibility to my stakeholders. And I don't really care to be the face yet. Once we offboard Team AP or offboard me time, once we have more, because I am hiring a CEO for Team AP Consulting, I am hiring a CEO for Dial Zero Marketing. Once we're in a place where those machines are just kind of rolling, then I can start thinking about it. But the thing with a personal brand is that I'm living everything I want to talk about then. So I'm like 3 years away from that being a real focus. And I do have Ashli P, which is my Instagram, where I do share some personal things, but like once a week, like I'm not really going ham over there. Do you know what I mean? So for me, I think that what you have to think about with a personal brand is truly having a personal brand, leveraging thought leadership is a job. That's a business and you have to run it as such. And I think that people really oversee the responsibility that encompasses that. So instead, I would like to pour my ethos and my values into my business and showcase myself through storytelling, but in a way that guides the ship forward. There's a lot I don't talk about because it doesn't pertain to that space.
Right. And I think you honestly noted something there that's really important, which is the differentiation between you as a person versus you as a brand. Because the example that I often tell people is kind of like Beyonce. Like Beyonce at home wears sweatpants and she's hanging out with her kids. That's not who she is on stage, right?
Right.
So Sasha Fierce, which basically is her alter ego, that's who she is as a brand because it's a curated experience. It's a, as you said, like a pulling of a storytelling and a narrative and values encompassed into one person. And that's how she shows up. Whereas like her at home with family is totally different. And so I also think with personal branding, I think sometimes there's a like misconception maybe that it's easier. Oh, I just be myself and therefore like I'm a brand. And it's no, it's actually a strategy of how you're intentionally or strategically wanting to show up that's therefore going to benefit or echo to the businesses that you're creating. And so I think sometimes when I've talked to people who say, should I be a business brand? Because it's, not my face, but then if I show up, it's going to be harder. I'm like, either way, it's hard. Like either way, it's a strategy. I think it's just a different way of how you're going to be approaching it. And I would be curious as well, because you mentioned obviously like team is a big piece here. And I think team is something in my experience, a lot of people do not like to talk about because it feels like this kind of like custom person to person experience, like hiring, firing, managing people. I'm also hearing a lot right now of people who don't want big teams. Like they're kind of
Yeah.
burned by potentially past experiences or stories of other people with teams. I personally am on the opposite side of the table. I've never really had I wouldn't say a bad experience when it comes to teams or outsourcing. I think it's been one of the reasons I've been able to do what I do. And obviously in hiring CEOs and having people already under your umbrella who are managing so much for you, I would just like love to hear from you what your experience has been in growing a team. Did you always see yourself having lots of people and being like, listen, I never want to be in the weeds of this? Or is this something that you kind of like almost got your skill set in managing people and you were like, okay, I'm really good at this and I can leverage this to go even bigger?
It's a great question. To be honest, I don't know how to run a business without a team. When I was in the fashion industry, I had a really big team under me for ever, so, and I did all the hiring, all the firing, all the management of that. I, nurtured that talent. I took training seminars on how to nurture that talent and how to read body language and how to communicate as a leader. So for me, it's something I have been trained on as aggressively as sales and marketing. So it's like leaving a tool in the tool. It's like, I need to put this frame on the wall. Should I use like glue or a screwdriver? And it's like, you have a hammer, like just go use the hammer. So I feel like it's just a natural skill set for me. However, I have a rule that I need to do anything first before I give it to the team, which is kind of gone now. But for the first 2-3 years, I wanted to do my email before I passed it off because I need to know if I'm being duped, right? So people can come to me to this day, people come to me on my team and they'll say, I can't do that. That's going to take 4 hours. And I'll pull it up on Zoom and I'll be like, 20 minutes, took me 20 minutes. Let's go. I won't actually be like aggressive like that. But, I do think it's important to be like, I know how long this takes. I know what's included, or I can ask the right questions because I understand the ecosystem. So I do think that made me a better leader and made me stronger. But there are things I like to try because I get surprised and I actually love it. But then there's things I like to try and I'm like, I hate it, but at least I understand the mechanism. But I don't want to be good at everything. I am a phenomenal manager and I'm a phenomenal leader. I am best when I am in service to my team. I've nurtured talent. I can see their skill sets. I know how to empower a team. And I very much am of the ideology that what I pour over to my team pours over to my clients. So by me being fully in service to my team as if they're my clients, when they feel empowered, when they feel excited, when they feel like they're allowed to make mistakes, which is a big ethos of my business, then they're going to show up better for my clients and they're going to take care of them. And they're probably going to do it better than I have because that's their focus. So for me, I want the long-term win. The long-term win for me is that your girl's on a boat in Italy for a month and every one of my 5 businesses is making me cash money and the team is loving their job because they get unlimited vacation and they have great salaries and bonuses and like we're working towards that. That is a very near future. So I'm very long-winded today. I apologize, but
I think that honestly, I just hear a constant narrative of especially with business owners, I feel like who are starting to scale. So I usually see this at about 6 figures, multi 6 figures, even like just kind of even on the brink of 7 sometimes. It's just so frustrating with my team. I'm the best at what I do. And it's just, I can't find anyone who's as good as me. And to me, it's such a capped scaling mindset, because if you're the only person who can do what you do, it means you're the only person who's going to be doing that thing, which means you cannot possibly grow because you only have X amount of people, like hours in a day. And if you have people, as you said, I think it's such an important thing that no one talks about. Serving your team or having your team or nurturing your team is the equivalent to getting your clients nurtured. If you want your clients taken care of, take care of your team. But I think that
Mm.
there's this, which I feel like is the non-sexy side. So I feel you are very much an open book. So I hope you're okay if we go
No,
here. But I
everything's on the table.
Okay. So I obviously, like in business consulting, go behind the scenes of businesses. And so I see the financials, I see the profit loss. And something that I see a lot is, I think this, number one, the difficulty. We briefly talked about this because actually, guys, I had the absolute pleasure of seeing Ashli speak at a conference in person. And we had the ability to hear her thoughts on team and basically like hiring before the need, hiring when the need happens. And I think that this is a concern people have. It kind of stems somewhat in management and leadership, as we're talking about, but sometimes it's also financial. This aspect of I'm growing the business, I'm grinding, I'm trying to get this going up. And I'm worried that if I hire somebody, I won't have the business it's kind of like your expenses and your revenue are tied to a string. And so you're thinking, if I don't have the revenue, then I can't pay the person, but I need to get the person in order to make more revenue. And they feel like they're at this like catch 22 between the two sides. And what I often see is that people are just kind of looking for a life raft in the business. They're feeling overwhelmed. I'm doing everything. I need to outsource. And maybe they're thinking about bringing on a team, but then they get burned by the financial impact of maybe not doing it in a strategic way, and maybe not understanding, should you hire before the need, at the time of the need? And so my question to you would be like, how you have, obviously you've grown and scaled so quickly in multiple different areas. And I would love to hear from you, I guess, what your thoughts are as to how do you do that strategically? Because in my opinion, I think that there's some times where, you can definitely foresee the need. Like, as you said, like the confidence of like, we're going there. Like, it's not like a if, it's a when. And so, to me, when I look at hiring, I often know when I need the need because I'm forecasting where we're going with the growth rates, et cetera. But for some people, it's kind of almost feeling like a shot in the dark. I'm just hoping that I'm making the right move here. So I'm curious for you, what's your opinion about hiring at the time of the need in preparation for the need? And have you ever seen that impact clients or people you've interfaced when it comes to the financial side?
It's such a great question because I think I hear something very similar often, which is, what do I do about this person who's not pulling their weight, or they're not doing exactly the way that I would? And the answer to team kind of has to be split down the middle, because there are the people who want that big team or who want that big agency or who want to leverage team and are nervous about it. There's other people who are making their first $100, their first $1,000. I remember when I was making $1,000 a month and sobbing because I thought it was so cool, which isn't that long ago, 3 years ago. And hiring somebody for $250 a month, every single one of those dollars is vital. So vital. Yes. You are deciding between this $15 a month software and this $15 a month software. And someone coming in and taking $250 of that is like a dagger. So I understand the fear there. And there has to be a level of responsibility and thought put into that role. So what I always recommend people do is stay in the work for a while. Hire someone to support you, to take bitch work off your plate, right? And if you are really nervous about the loss of money, you don't have to worry about someone coming in and fucking up your work or ruining that relationship with that client or doing things less than they need to. And in that first few stages of business, that's where it's most important, hiring the support for you, right? Can you send those call notes? Can you upload those things to the portal? Whatever it is. But then later, if you do want that team, me stepping out and saying, I don't want to do the work, you guys do the work. The thing that we have to remember, and this is something I always come back to, is that, and this might just be preference and it may be difference of people and difference of skill sets, etc. But I personally am very much like, I don't believe people can do less of a job than I do. Like, I'm not special enough that I'm the only one that can do this job, right? And so I also think that I think about the people who have nurtured me in my career. When I was at Rebecca Minkoff, Rebecca was my boss. The CEO was my boss. And what they did with me was so incredible because it was very much whatever you want. You're smart, go do it. And I think that empowerment, I got to find my way. And I got to learn from all these people, how are they doing it and what's their way? But I don't want to rob my team of finding their vision. And it might conflict with mine. And I don't care if the client's happy, right? So my focus is that we do good work with integrity, with thought. We're communicative with our clients. They can do all of that. And I'll step in if I'm like, ooh, I'm not loving that. Or hey, maybe we rethink this. And I'm there to
Yeah.
help and I'm there to guide and I'm there to support. And it kind of like sounds fucked up, but it's a bit like parenting. And what's interesting in corporate is that we took parenting seminars when we were put into leadership roles. And I think it's really interesting because you learn I don't want to, I need you to know how to do the laundry when you move out of this house. I need you to understand how the laundry works. And are you going to fold it the way that I fold it? Maybe not. And are you going to be able to get the wrinkles out the way I do? Maybe not. But when you leave this house, damn it, you will know how to do the laundry. And so all of this comes back to the fact that I think that a lot of people forget part of your reputation is wrapped up in how you train your team. And when you leave, my team is not staying with me for life. That's like insane. But when you leave my team, you will be the best person on someone else's. And that's very important to me. And that means they need space to make mistakes. And I tell them all the time, make mistakes. Tell me when it happens so I can help you, right? I don't want there to ever be shame in making a mistake. I never scold them. I'm never upset with them because we are doing this together and I want them to fall and I want to help them stand back up. I think it's a shift in mindset where you have to kind of say, who am I in service to? And you have to get out of being in service to your clients. If you're hiring correctly, you're hiring people who care and who are ambitious. And those are my 2 rules for when I hire you. I can't teach you to care. I can't teach you to be ambitious. And those are a lot of my questions, is to find out how ambitious someone is and how much someone cares. If you care, if you're ambitious, you're taking care of my clients. And it is my full responsibility to nurture you in this role and in this skill set.
I just have to say, and I'm sure either you guys or someone has said this to you, I just want you guys to recognize her growth mindset as she's talking. Because what I hear from business owners I talk to is I don't want them to be too ambitious because they'll leave me. I don't want them to have too big of goals because it means that they're not going to stay with me. I don't want them to have their own ideas because then they might take those ideas and take it somewhere else. I don't want them to know too much about intellectual property because if they do, they're not. It's so this idea of basically cage the entire team to protect us. And so I think as I'm listening to you, I just have to echo and make sure that everyone really sees from this and takes from this the reality that she has such a growth and abundance mindset to the team. As you said, I know they're not going to be with me forever, but I'm going to help them to build their skill set. You're going to obviously learn my principles of what I like to see happen, but I also really value your ideas. The duality of the ability for you to equally be served as much as the team is being served, I think is so massive. And I also would be curious for you with team, what has been, in your opinion, like one of the biggest learnings in all of the hiring that you've done? Because I think a lot of people are scared of hiring the wrong person. And I don't really think that hiring is something that, in my experience, you can always know. I've hired, to be totally transparent, I've hired people for personality. I'm just like, you have got this, not, I don't even know if you have the resume to do it, but you've got a personality paired with, I can train you the skills. And I think those two combined, we can make you a superstar kind of thing. So I have seen that, but I also have seen people who also discovered a skill set that they didn't even realize that they were genius at. And now they manage that department. So I'm curious for you, and in the hiring, have you ever kind of had this like big takeaway that if I could tell someone and you're like new to team or you're trying to manage a team, here's my hot take for you when it comes to either hiring people, firing people, managing people? Would you say like a one big lesson or takeaway that you've experienced in all of the team members you've dealt with?
Yeah, try to get to know them as a person in the interview. I like to ask people, like, if you could go on a weekend trip with a family member, who would you go with and what would you guys do together? Or if you had the day to yourself with no phone anywhere in the world, what would you do? Or what does exploration mean to you? Or if I asked you how you play, what does that tell you? And so I think that getting to know the person is really important, but also, like I said, I ask questions about their ambition and I want to see. I always tell people there's a difference between a job and a career. I want career women. I ask my team, what are your big goals? And one of them says, I want the social media agency you're building. And so I invite her into meetings and I say, this is why I made this decision. You have to know this if you're starting a social media agency. One of them wants to be a creative director. And I said to her, it's not about being a creative, it's understanding the ecosystem and how that affects us legally and financially. I'm inviting you into these conversations because you have to know this if you're going to go be a creative director someday. And I think it is more beneficial to me as a person for them to say, she taught me so much than for me to fear them leaving and exposing all my secrets. Because if they expose their secrets to someone, girl, you're 5 years behind me. Like, take it. I don't give a shit. But with that, I think that the second thing I would say, so one, really get to know the person. You're spending a lot of time with them, so really get to know the person. But two, I think it's very important to hire people with values. And especially if you're loud and outspoken and kind of a dickhead on the internet like I can be, you need somebody who really understands, like, this is what I believe in and this is what I stand for and this is what I'm not cool with. And I will not judge you and I will not hate on you and I will send you love if you don't agree with those things. But I need a team that's going to rally here, because we do have a reparations discount for people of color and for different LGBTQ people and stuff like that, because I do think that I have more privilege than them and I want to support them. If someone comes in and doesn't like that, bye. Like, I don't know what to tell you, right? So I think that, like, really getting to the core ugly truth about some values is kind of important, especially if you're like me, where you want to be very loud about those topics. I would rather have a team that supports those topics than quiet myself or tiptoe in my own home.
Yeah. And I think that also it kind of in a way stems back to what you were talking about with having kids, because I think when you have a team and you have values, it kind of becomes almost like I often, like with our team or clients, we'll talk about it like this, like inner commandments. So when you were raised by your parents, you often had, here's what we do and here's what we don't do. Here's how we treat people. Here's how we don't treat people. And so it's these like inner family dynamics or like commandments that were ingrained with you that you kind of understood how to take those and move forward. And so I think a lot of the times when people are looking at team, they think about, I'm trying to basically create a duplicate of myself who knows all the exact ways I do it in the way that I do it. And it's kind of, as you said, like your kids, like they're going to be very similar to you probably because you've ingrained those commandments and those values into them, but they're also going to take that and run with it. And the core thing is, generally speaking, are your kids abiding by your overall values? Because I think if you can get your team on that same page, that's what personally has given me confidence. Like when they're interfacing with a client or if they're taking something over on my behalf or they're writing something even on my behalf, I'm not worried if they understand my tone, they understand my value, they understand what the way that I communicate with people versus the way that I don't. So like when you have that confidence in that they understand my values, I feel like you trust more with the delegation as well.
I agree. I do think that's a big part of it. I think that the way that I view it is like, this is my house. And I'm walking around my house with comfort. I'm not going to feel dis-ease in my home. And part of that means that when I'm walking around here, I don't want someone to be whispering behind my back about something I said on Instagram that is so crazy to them. Or I don't want someone to be like, oh my God, is she going to fire me because I don't believe that? Or whatever it is. Like, this is my house. And if I'm going to live here, which you do in business, I have to be the most comfortable, because I also have to be the one making the decisions, most free, most creative, most spaciousness in my mind. I can't be clouded with, do I have the right people in the space that support me? It's like, that should be a given. And I'm only hiring for that. Because I remember there was this really pivotal moment in my life when I really looked up to a few amazing creatives and I loved them. And I was like, everything they do is so good. How are people that creative? And all three of them I found had come from, when I say wealthy families, I mean beyond wealthy families. And it kind of hurt to find out, because I thought, with all that comfort, of course you're creative, right? And so I had this jealousy. And I think we all learn with jealousy that it's almost a mirror of what you really want. And so what I've really tried to aim and strive for is that I have comfort because I need to be creative. And if I want that future, that me time sale, that month on a boat in Italy, then all of that means that I need to be building a house I'm comfortable in, because that's where I'm going to be able to breathe the best and make the best decisions that aren't coming from fear.
Right. And I think the other thing, I actually remember you speaking at the beginning and it popped up in my head and I just thinking and circling back to it now. I definitely know a lot of business owners who started from wealth, and I kind of agree. It's not that they haven't worked hard. I'm not saying any of that. I think it's just, there is this, can't even really put my finger on it, but like hunger when you don't have that backup, when you don't have that like base fund behind you. And I often kind of felt the sink or swim even in starting my business, because I didn't really have a buffer. I didn't have $100,000 that I could get access to. I didn't have $50,000 I could get access to. There was no loan. There wasn't any of that sitting in a bank account that I could pull from. And I think for me, it lit this fire in me of I have to make this work because there really isn't a backup other than going back to a 9 to 5. And I'm curious for you, when you were starting your business, and even as you're seeing yourself scale, do you feel like that hunger was there for you? Do you feel like that impacted your almost like your hunger, your ability, your mindset to grow to what you have? Because like you've done so much in such a short amount of time. And I would have to think that there's just some inner voice that had to start from somewhere that really is that fire that like keeps you getting up every morning. Okay, let's do this. Let's go.
I could definitely give you the fluffy answer, and there is one. There's a fluffy answer around, working in the fashion industry. Everybody comes from money and is wearing designer stuff. And I was like, I have to give it 120%. So every day I could give you that answer. The truth is that there's a lot of survival trauma that I have that of all the traumas, I'm pretty grateful for that one because it's made me very ambitious. But it's something that as I develop more safety and more of a cushion in my personal life, I really am reworking in therapy. And it's one of the reasons that I'm so anti hustle culture. I'm very pro hustle culture. And the reason for that is because what a privilege for me to work through that trauma. And if I hadn't hustled, I wouldn't be able to work through this like
Yes.
survival trauma because the survival trauma made me successful. And so I have a lot of issue, and this isn't to you. I'm just like sharing this because I know that people have seen this. I have a big issue with like
Yeah, of
big
course.
influencers or thought leaders saying like the hustle is so bad for you, because I'm like, what pedestal are you saying that from though? Because how did you get there? You probably hustled. So the reason that I'm bringing that up though
Yeah.
is because your question is like, where did that stem from? I can tell you one, be the fashion industry. I moved to New York, a girl from Missouri who had no money, who had no connections. There were times that I couldn't put money on my Metro card and I had to walk 13 miles back to my apartment across the Brooklyn Bridge. Like I had nothing. I had no food. I had to figure it out. I was working full-time internships and full-time jobs. And a lot of that was because I was like, this is my meal ticket. This is my meal ticket to a better life and to a bigger dream and all of that stuff. And I don't think that's ever left me. And I beat everybody in the room. I was the best salesperson in the room. My close rate was 100%. My sell-through percentages of like when you sell product to a store, how much of it sells. Like the typical one is like 50%. Mine was 80% because I was studying the market and I was really good at my job. So I had to outperform everybody. And I don't think that ever left. And a lot of that is I need to feed my family. I need to make sure my mom's okay. And I need to make sure that I can one day like breathe without a worry of a financial concern over my head. And I just think it's a little irresponsible to not say that. And so for me, I think it's important that people know the fluffy story is I had to outperform in the fashion industry. But a lot of that is like survival trauma, and that I'm grateful for because of all traumas, it's made me ambitious. But it is something that now that I'm getting more of a cushion, I do have to honestly look at and say, I'm safe now. How do I feel? And it's been like truly some of the hardest work I've ever done.
Well, I definitely resonate with that because I think for me, I often talk to business owners and I say, you're usually motivated by one of two things. You either, and maybe potentially a little bit of both, or it's shifting. It's kind of like a pendulum that changes as you grow. Even as you're talking about, which I so see for you, the yacht in Italy, I'm seeing it. I'm manifesting that for you. Absolutely. I can see this for you. No problem. But I think there's two things that motivate people. There's like the future, which is, as you're saying, like the yachts, the house, the money, the business, the team, whatever you see is that future. And then I think there's also this, if I'm going to be honest, like I think for me, and I'm in a weird spot with this as well, because I find even now, even though I've had a lot of success, and to your point, I'm very privileged to have the comfort that I have with the business now. I still find myself, because of how I grew up and because of family experience and all of these factors, I still find myself just fearing going back. And I think like it's tough because when you're building the business, there's some people who are like, I just want to achieve these things. But for me, I actually find like my quote unquote hunger is I don't want to go back to worrying about paying bills. I don't want to go back to paycheck figuring like, how am I going to do this? And even in the current climate of the world today with inflation and seeing how many people are struggling today, it almost, I don't know if you feel this, but I feel like it further lit my fire to be like, I have to just reach and help more people because it's just, you see the impact of that reality echoed even larger and basically like 10x volume than it was before. And I'm curious for you in your business with all the things you've achieved, do you feel like your hunger often comes from trying to basically get away from your past? Or would you say you're more motivated by future achievement?
Past. I'd say 70% past, 30% future. And a part of it is present. I'm going to be honest. Like I don't pay myself a ton of money. We shared that together at the conference that we both reinvest
Yeah.
pretty much everything back in. But I do have a
Yeah.
nice life. I have a really beautiful home. I have nice things. I can travel when I want. And I'm not saying money's no object. Money is an object. I definitely have to make good financial decisions. But what's really great is all my bills are on auto pay. I don't have a ton of debt. I have a normal, totally doable, could pay it off today amount of debt. And I
Yeah.
can buy the groceries that I want, and I can go visit my mom in North Carolina if I want. And to me, that is rich. I am rich. I'm loaded. The fact that I can do those things, the fact that I don't have to be like, well, do I get 2 bananas or 4 bananas because bananas are so expensive right now? Like richest person I know. Do you know what I'm saying? That's how my brain works.
Yeah.
So for me, I
Yep.
just want to stay here, and I want to stay grateful for it, and I want to stay so in love with it, and I want to be playing, and I want to not lose the grind that got me here, but I do think I want to let go of some of the shackles that I have to my childhood, my past. And that's kind of what I'm trying to do, is like, how do I do that without losing all of my momentum? And because that fear really does drive me. And I do, maybe, I don't know if I want kids, but if I do, the catch-22 here is I want to help them have a good life. And so I'm resentful of people who grew up with this nice life and these opportunities. And I'm like, I'll give you anything. What do you want? So I also want to be able to do that for my kids, but to do that in a way, or my nephews and nieces and whatever. But, I want to be able, I just want to feel good. I want to take care of my mom. I want to take care of myself. I want to feel comfortable. I don't want to worry. I think that to me is rich. I don't want to worry. And when I start to worry is when I start to get scared. And that's when all of that triggers.
I will say, I think the thing that obviously, I love you for so many different reasons that what you do, but I will say one of the things that I really love about you as a brand, and even just as you're further talking now, and I think is a highlight for people to realize, is like your motivators are definitely so similar to mine. Like for me, part of the reason I really push the way I do is my mom was a single mom of 4. And so seeing her life and how she basically struggled to get us to where we are today, being able to give back to her. And as you're talking about taking care of your mom, I think the motivators in business obviously are different person to person, but I think we need to very much, especially in today's society, redefine rich, because I think social media has this really bizarre way of saying what achievement is, what wealth is. And I think to your point, I don't live a lavish life. I don't drive a Lamborghini. I don't do any of those things right now, at least. As you said, same thing to you. I have a nice home. I can buy groceries every week. I can go on a vacation if I want to. I'm very comfortable. I wouldn't say that I'm the Kardashians by any means, but for me, it works. When was the moment that you knew you had achieved comfort? What was there a situation and experience where you felt, okay, I feel like like that kind of moment of the pressure, the tightness of the financial kind of didn't feel as tight. For me, it was, I went to the grocery store and I bought something. It was like a teriyaki sauce. Like it wasn't anything. And I remember bringing it to my family's house and they were like, oh, how much was it? And I remember saying, I don't know. Because I wasn't checking the price. Like, it's so small. But like for me, I wasn't checking the price tag anymore. And it used to be like, is it 250 or is it 320? Because if it was 320, then we might choose something else because it was cheaper and you need to cut back and etc. And for me, that was like this like weird light bulb moment of, whoa, like you have actually achieved comfort. It was never hitting these big 7-figure milestones. It was never a car. It wasn't a certain investment. Like it was just this small thing that used to be something that was kind of like a learned, maintained stress that I wasn't even really aware of, to be honest, because it was just how we lived. And then being able to go to the grocery store and seeing that I didn't care about the extra $1.50 or whatever it may have been, I was like, that to me was like the moment where I was like, okay, keep going. Like you've made it, which I know is like a very small thing, but for me, because of how we grew up, it was a very big deal. I was curious for you, was there ever a kind of experience like that where you kind of had the step back moment and you're like, whoa, like things are changing here?
It's so funny you say the grocery store one, because that wasn't what popped in my head, but I just had that experience. My mom's been in town for 2 months, just spending time with me. We do push periods and rest periods where I work really hard and then I don't really work much. And so I'm in a rest period right now. So my mom came to visit for a couple months and we live different lives. And I ordered groceries and same thing. She was like, blueberries are so expensive. I don't remember what it was. Are so expensive right now. And I was like, I remember thinking, I can't tell her this, but I have no idea how much I spend on groceries. Like I truly don't. I buy what I need to eat. I buy what feels good and healthy. And that is so rich in today's world, in today's culture, and like across the globe, like that. I cannot overlook how massive that is, right? So I love that you brought that up. I think that's a really good acknowledgement. There was a point, I went through a really bad personal period running my business very publicly, I guess it was last year. And I don't really want to get into it, but it was a devastating situation for me. And I didn't really talk about it too publicly on my social, but I talked about it with the doers and people who knew, and it took me out. Like, I'm trying to not get emotional, but it wiped me out. And I had so much MRR, monthly recurring revenue, in my business, so much that for work that I wasn't actively doing, for like future payment plans or past payment plans, that I took 2 months off of work. I shut my laptop. I didn't post on Instagram. I told the doers, which is my membership, I'm only doing what I need to. I told, my private clients, I'm here, but in the back end, I was like, I'm going to pull back a little bit. And I just escaped. I went to my sister's basement for a few months. I literally was just like laying in that basement, like reading books. I went to the beach. I just shut it down. And I remember thinking in that moment, this is so crazy. I cannot believe that this is even possible, that I can do this. And that to me, like, what a luxury, like what an absolute privilege. And then what was really the big light bulb is that when I came back, I said, because I moved out of New York, which has been really hard for me because I'm just myself there. I'm happiest there. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to spend the summer in the city. And I said, how much do I want? I want to live it big. And I was like, okay, so I want to burn through 40 grand this summer. I'm just going to do it. I'm going to say, fuck it. I'm going to burn through 40 grand this summer. And I went on social media and I sold different packages and different services, low lift for me, very valuable to the consumer. And I made 40 grand in 2 weeks. And I was like, let's go. And me and my best friend went to the city and we were just like going out all the time. We were going to great dinners and we were shopping. And it was just like the best revival period. And I think both of those together, where I was like, I know how to make $1,000 in the next 10 minutes if I have to, is the ultimate freedom. And that's what really empowers me, is having those keys to the kingdom. But also that moment where I was like, I can shut this down and I'm safe, was a huge, that to me, pinnacle. Everything after that is a bonus. Pinnacle right there.
I want to thank you for sharing that, because I think there's a lot of highlight reel on social media. And we had an episode talking about burnout and stuff like that, because I had a very similar situation about a year or so ago. And I'll be honest, like it made me rethink the business, because I was just in such a low period that I couldn't see through the clouds. Like I was just like, I don't know how I'm going to get through this period. And I think what you're talking about kind of connects to all of this, which is, I think in entrepreneurship, there's this double-sided coin where it's like you have so much control. So you very much can do whatever you need to do. You can go make that $1,000 today in the next hour. You can make $40,000 and go to New York. You can do that. But there's also this aspect of, I can't control it. I don't feel like I can harness entrepreneurship because it's so unpredictable. It's this roller coaster. And something I would love to just pick your brain about is, have you felt more control in your business than you have the roller coaster? Or do you think that the control has been just something more recent in the scaling journey? Or have you always felt like, I got the reins, I'm doing this, I'm driving this ship, basically, let's go?
It's something I talk about a lot. I'm glad you ask, because I'm not going to say I don't feel the roller coaster. I would say I'm aware of the roller coaster, but I'm in charge. And what I try to relate it to is horseback riding. Have you ever ridden a horse?
I'm like deathly afraid of horses.
Yeah. Okay. So we're not putting Kate on a horse, guys. Like, note to the world. So when you are horseback riding, from the little that I know, but I'm still using the analogy, is that a lot of it is about thigh strength, because you're basically in a squat the entire time. And the horse is moving and bouncing up and down and gallivanting, but you are supposed to stay as rigidly straight as possible and allow it to go. Another great example would be surfing. Like, you are pretty straight, the waves are coming and going, but like your legs are what's moving. You are staying very focused and centered. So for me, it's not that I'm unaware of all of those ups and downs. It's that I am not phased by it, right? I have to be aware of when we're in a slow season and account for it. I have to have reserves built up. I need to know when is the time to push and when is the time to rest, and lean into rest without shame and guilt. And so it's one of the reasons why I tell people, if you are looking to make an investment in your business, you have to do it in therapy. You have to make an investment in therapy, because I believe personally, a lot of the roller coaster is internal. So it's not
Yeah.
necessarily that you had a slow season, it's that you assigned meaning to it, or that you assigned like personal worth with that. Where for
Yeah.
me, if a client says, listen, I don't really love what you created here, I'm going to say, we're going to fix it, or we have to learn from that mistake in the future. And on we go. That's it. Like, I care about that person. I want to see if I can make it right. And then that's it. So, you have to kind of, it's something I actually talked about on a podcast before. LOL, it was like yesterday, but like this is going to come out in February. Something that I've talked about on a podcast was this idea that you have to decide if the season you're in feels hard for the business or if it feels hard for your emotions. And when it's hard for your emotions, that's valid. That is so fair. But fix the problem. If we say, my product suite isn't selling, I have to change it, what if you have to change how you market it? What if you have to change the meaning you're assigning to it? What if let's work through those emotions, because there might not be a pricing problem. There might not be an issue with your marketing. Everything might be check, perfect in place. It could just be the wrong time. Maybe it was the wrong season. Maybe it was this, that, and the other, whatever it is. So I think that first and foremost, we have to identify, it's our responsibility as founders to identify, is what I'm feeling bad for business or hard for my emotions? And when you can really dive into that, you can say, I am feeling scared because this is bringing up wounds from this, or I really wanted to impress this person and I'm not going to, and I'm sad about that. Or I let them down and now they view me differently, and that is hard for me to accept. Those are all fair and valid. Let's work through that. Let's not actually fix the wrong problem. Let's fix the right problem.
I'm just like so happy that you just brought that up, because I think in going into people's businesses, what they think often is a strategy problem, 9 times out of 10, in my opinion, that I see is actually more of a leader problem, a CEO problem, than it is an actual business structure problem. To your point, the offer is not selling. And is it actually the fact that your market does not want that type of offer, doesn't want that problem solved, which sometimes can be the case, but oftentimes it's a matter of the person, for example, has like tons of chaos happening in their personal life. Their energy is totally tanked. They're trying to show up and save face basically in marketing. They're putting in the reps and just going through the motions, and like nothing's happening. And I'm like, is it the offer or is it all of this other information that you've just told me? I truly believe entrepreneurship is probably the most intense personal development journey that anyone can do. Because if you really want to know yourself, even if you try to hide from yourself, it's going to come forward. Like, you go to pitch the high ticket rate and you're feeling really uncomfortable, there's a reason for that. If you go and you're not getting validation from your social media and you're feeling really activated in a negative way by that, there's a reason for that. So I think it really showed in entrepreneurship, all your triggers come forward. And I think to your point, the investment into the business, and we talked about this, guys, when we were in person at a conference together, we were both talking about the fact that we don't necessarily take home piles and piles. We both live very comfortable lives, but we don't necessarily always work the business for our personal gain as much as we do for building the business and building companies. And I think part of that to me has also been the investment of the money that I do take for myself is into things that can build me up, as you mentioned, therapy. For me particularly, it's like ice baths, red light therapy, naturopaths, all of the things that I need to be like that top peak performance. That to me is like the best investment you can make into your business, because if you understand yourself, your capacity, your ability, it actually very much will give you insights on how to operate the business from that knowledge. So if you need more rest, if you need more work time, can you handle more work time? Is that really what you want to do? Having clarity of all those things, I feel like also really helps in scaling. I'm just so happy that you mentioned that, because I think it's a really important takeaway for people who are kind of at that place where they're like investment into personal versus business and kind of that relationship. I'm literally realizing that we've been talking for an hour, and guys, I could probably do this for 4 hours with her because much for us to unpack. So I might have to have you back because there's a lot for us to talk about.
Anytime.
I definitely want to finish off with the last question. The women who listen to this podcast are women who have tons of goals. Like, they are very ambitious in their business, in their relationships, with their family, with their health. And I was just going into your intro talking about like really the fact that you truly are like the full embodiment of what it means to be ambitious. And so I would love just your advice to the listener who feels like she has so many goals she's going for. She has so much that she wants to achieve and kind of feels how do I do it all? Like, how do I have the top health, the top relationship, the top finances, go for the business, potentially have kids? As women, there's just so much we're navigating, and you've done so much. If you were to give advice to our listeners of the women who wants to do all of the things, and you have done so much, any thoughts that you have for her?
Don't be the top anything.
Okay.
I don't care to compete with anybody. Like, if someone says, I'm going to steal everything you do in social media and make more money than you and have better clients, I will be the first one to celebrate you. I'm fine, right? If someone says, I'm going to start a mentorship community and a membership just like yours, amazing. I have so many tips I want to celebrate with you, right? And I think I don't really care. I don't care to be number one. I don't care to be better than anyone. I don't care to be the top. I want to do good. And I think that people get really lost in the competition, thinking that perfect is where the money's made and good is where the money is made. You have to be good. You have to do good work and you have to treat people well. And it's way more simple than you think it is. I think we've been fed this narrative that the only people who are rich are the people who are like the CEOs of massive businesses. And I just don't think that's true. So I would say, above anything, be the top in your life, right? And find a way to, I think really quickly with that, and I'm sorry, I'm like belaboring this very quick point that you're asking about, but I think with that, people tend to think that I have to be the top achiever, right? Achievement is what makes money. I have to achieve. I have to get 30 people in this group program, not 20. I have to get 6 private clients, not 2. I have to get 100,000 people in this membership, not 1,000. I have to make $10 million, not 100,000. And I want to just remind everybody that I have personally never found that to be the case. I've made the most money by focusing on being an avid learner, not an avid achiever. If you look at our actual results, we're not doing anything insane. Like, we aren't doing like crazy shit at Dial Zero Marketing. We're doing the same thing other social media agencies are. We just have better connections. That's just the truth. So I just want everybody to remember that, like, when you focus on being a student, you allow yourself to learn, which means getting things wrong and not having the shame wrapped up in that. Like, I don't care what you achieve. I care how you move through the seasons of your business. And that to me is where I know someone's going to be successful, is if they say, I made this mistake, I moved through it, and here's what we're doing, versus the person that said, I'm never going to make that mistake again. I'm already concerned for you. So be an avid learner, not an avid achiever, and don't care to be the top. Like, that's way too much pressure. Just have some fun.
I love it. I love it. And be basically embracing of the journey is what I'm hearing from there. It's not necessarily the destination of I achieve this check mark. It's more a matter of you're in this process of constant development, constant learning, just absorbing new things along the way and basically riding the wave.
Yeah, I mean, there's a client of mine who coaches actors, and she has this really incredible, powerful statement that she says to people that says, after you win an Emmy, you're going to go to sleep as yourself. And so do you want that Emmy, or do you want to be able to go to sleep at night saying, I cannot fucking believe what I've built. I'm so fucking happy. This is so cool. This is so amazing. And to me, that's my Emmy. Living this life the way that I have. I tell everybody all the time, I'm at my peak. If it gets better than this, it's dessert. This is the peak. This is the best. And I'm not doing anything crazy. We have like less than 10,000 followers with all of our accounts combined personally, and not big email lists. Like, you can make good money and have good lives without being the top.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like that's something that people are shocked by, which I would probably assume is the same for you. People are shocked that you don't have more followers because your business has so much success. And you're like, wait, people associate that with the size of the business, which, guys, as a FYI, the two are not correlated.
We have some celebrities that aren't on the website. So don't be like, is it this one? No, it's not there. She's a nightmare. But who has millions of followers. Every person listening to this podcast knows who it is, knows this person. And we get her selling reports for her product in a nationwide big box retailer, and I make more money than that brand. So just so you know, I don't give a shit about your followers. You got to learn how to sell. You got to learn how to market. You got to learn how to connect. It really doesn't matter. But anyway, I'll shut up eventually, Kate, I promise.
You guys heard it here first. So I don't have to tell you. She told you. You heard it. Honestly, Ashli, thank you so much for coming on. I just feel like I want to go back and rewatch this and just like take in all the nuggets of what you shared, because there's just so much more that we could expand on. So thank you so much for just sharing all of your insights, obviously, with building these incredible businesses. I definitely will have to have you back on at some point because there's just too much. There's too many juicy nuggets we got to get into. So all that to be said, you guys, as always, please be sure to share the show, share on social. You can watch on YouTube or listen onto Spotify, Apple, and all the main audio platforms. And as always, guys, stay ambitious, and we will see you guys next week.